Welcome to Paranormal Heart, a place where people can talk about their paranormal experiences. With your host, Kat Ward.
Happy Halloween! Welcome back, folks, to Paranormal Heart. I'm your host, Kat Ward. You can find new episodes on the second and last Sunday of each month on Podbean, YouTube, FringeRadioNetwork.com, and any place you find fine podcasts. If you've had paranormal encounters you'd like to share, you can either be a guest on the show, or you can submit them in writing, and I'll be happy to narrate your story. And if you'd like to have your very own free Paranormal Heart podcast sticker, just drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to mail you one wherever you are on this beautiful globe of ours. This episode's shout out goes to you amazing listeners in Hungary. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the show. Much love to you all. What would Halloween be without the Raven? I just had to add this wonderful poem. So before we get to my special guest, sit back, relax, and enjoy Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, narrated by Mr. Bryan Anderson.
The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more. Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly had I sought to borrow from my book Sucrese of sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This is it, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dreamed to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore?" This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore." Let my heart be still a moment and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped the stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but, with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven wandering the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though it answered little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, was such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have followed before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master who unmercifully disaster, followed fast and followed faster till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled and cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking, fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking, nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated over, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating over, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe, for thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by the heaven that bends above us, by the God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden if, within the distant Aden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word or sign imparting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out of my heart, and take thy form from off my door. quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight over him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out the shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. From the Richmond Semi-Weekly Examiner, September 25th, 1849. Narrated by Bryan Anderson.
Thank you so much, Bryan. In episode 68, my special guest is paranormal investigator and TV personality Lynda Quirino. Lynda's been in the paranormal field for over 40 years and has experienced unexplained phenomena all of her life. At 18 years of age, she began to investigate the paranormal while in college in her hometown of Montreal, and continued to research and investigate on her own until relocating to the Toronto area in 1986. In 1997, she became the assistant director of the Toronto Ghosts and Hauntings Research Society until 2003. Once again, working freelance until she founded the Georgina Paranormal Society in 2012 in the town of Georgina, where she now resides. Lynda appears on the TV show Paranormal Survivor as one of its paranormal experts. She's also appeared on many paranormal podcasts, radio, local TV shows, and gives presentations for various organizations throughout Canada. I give you Lynda Quirino. Hello, Lynda. Happy Halloween. Welcome to Paranormal Heart.
I am so excited to be here. Happy Halloween to you too.
Thank you. I'm so excited you're here too. My favorite time of the year, and I'm sure it's your favorite time as well.
100%.
It's just, even when I was younger, before I got into the paranormal, I always liked Halloween for whatever reason. I was drawn to it.
Yep, I know the feeling. Me too. And it wasn't specifically about the fact that I got to wear a costume. I just really liked the whole atmosphere, the whole ambiance, that whole thing about how the ghosts and spirits are kind of more active around this time of the year.
Yes. I remember, I don't know if you know what amateur radio is. Ham radio?
Amateur radio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, my dad is an amateur radio operator, and I remember growing up on Halloween night, he would go on what was called witch hunts. And I thought my father was actually hunting witches. And I wanted to go. I wanted to see what they looked like, because I figured they're not at all how everybody portrays them, and I want to know the real, what are the real witches like? And my dad said, no, it's too dangerous. I'm like, why is it too dangerous? Making me more fascinated, and I want to go even more. Come to find out, no, they're not hunting real witches. They would just patrol the neighborhood, because after trick-or-treating, there would always be troublesome teens who would light fires to bridges, just wreak havoc. So what the amateur radio community would do is they would drive around, and if they saw anything suspicious, they'd get on their radios that they had in the cars, and they'd call it into the police station, because they worked with the police as well. So I was like, when I was older and found out that, no, they're not really hunting witches, I was kind of disappointed in a way.
That's interesting. Well, it's funny that you're talking about all of that, because all these memories come up around this time of the year. And having grown up in Montreal, we always had what was called Mat Night. And Mat Night was the night before Halloween. And that's when kids around the neighborhood would go around and egg your windows if you had a jack-o'-lantern in the window the night before Halloween, or steal your mat.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it was a Montreal thing, maybe it was a Quebec thing, but my parents always would bring in the outdoor mat, and we were not allowed to have a jack-o'-lantern in the window or anything like that, because people would get egged and all this stuff would happen the night before Halloween.
That's interesting. Yeah, if anybody has ever heard of this, please let us know. Mat night, yeah, I love that. And if that was a tradition in your area, in Canada, the States, or anywhere in the world, let us know. I'm interested to find out if anybody else had that tradition too. Sorry, I just banged my table here.
That's okay. No worries. You know what? I'm sitting here on a very squeaky bed, so if you hear a little weird sound, you know what it is.
I have my usual co-host Daisy, my little cat here, and she purrs, and I can usually hear it on the recording later on. So yeah, you might hear a little bit of purring. Purrs and
That's
squeaks.
Okay. My cat Ophelia is here, and she's a purrer too. So if
yeah.
you hear purring, maybe it's in competition. We'll see who purrs the loudest.
That's funny. Yeah, I grew up in New Brunswick, and yeah, I haven't heard of that. That's pretty cool. I've heard of, in my neighborhood, we would have pumpkin smashing that people, but I can't remember if that was done Halloween night or if that was done before or after, but yeah, if you had pumpkins outside, they would get smashed. They still happen now.
I tell you, you know, Kat, we got to just reel in the hooligans, because
right?
This time of the year is a great time of the year, and I love decorating, and I love it when people make their yards and their porches all spooky. And if people can't do that anymore, that'd be really sad.
Yes, when we moved out west for a couple of years, well, here in Ontario, when my daughter, she was always taller than everybody else in her class. She would just tower over them. So she would look older. And it got to the point after a while for Halloween, they wouldn't give her much candy because she thought that everyone thought she was a lot older. And I thought, it doesn't matter. It's Halloween. And then we moved to Alberta, and people are like, no, I don't care if you're an adult trick-or-treating. Here's some kid, you know. It's so strange how people across the country look at Halloween and trick-or-treating differently.
Well, that just means that this year you got to go trick-or-treating. That it kind of inspires me to just go trick-or-treating. I might actually just go as a 58-year-old woman.
Well, I had a Newfoundland friend that lived here, and he was saying back home in Newfoundland, they would have trick-or-treating for the kids, but they would also give like a little toddy to the adults as well. So a little alcoholic swig for the parents. And I thought, oh, I like that tradition.
Okay, I really like that. Actually, here, unfortunately, they don't do that anymore because the man is retired. But down the street from where I live, and I've lived on the same street for 21 years, we had a man with a French fry truck, or what we like to call a chip truck.
Mm-hmm, yep.
And he used to give out chips. Yeah, he used to give out French fries to everyone, including the adults, on Halloween night.
That's awesome. What an amazing man. That's cool. I love that. There was one year, because I live in a military community, and one time on the base, because trick-or-treating used to be huge on the base, they had these great big mod tents set up at the end of one road, and they had hot chocolate for the kids, and I think they had like beer or something like that for the adults too. I remember it was something alcoholic, but it wasn't like hard stuff or anything, and it wasn't like a full bottle. It was just like little cups, you know. But I thought, hey, I really like this. I had a license and everything to do it. I don't know how they got it, but they did. But I thought that was kind of neat. Hot chocolate for the kids and a little adult beverage for the grown-ups.
Well, I say why not? I mean, it's a special night.
Yeah, so fun. I remember my son when he was 3, and we'd go trick-or-treating, and all the kids around were all girls. He was the only boy, so a bunch of us would go trick-or-treating. And this one house had the door open, and they had the fog machine, and they had spooky music, and all the girls backed up. And my son looked at me and said, hold this, hold his trick-or-treat bag. And he got in this fighting stance to protect the girls. And he was 3. Oh, he was the youngest of everyone. Well, the woman who was at that house thought it was so cool. She says, come here, honey. And she just put a whole bunch of stuff in his bag. I thought that was kind of cute.
Oh, I love that.
Any special traditions other than the mat one in your area?
Not really. We're now we're in an area that's more built up, but when we first moved here, this was one of the newer subdivisions, and interestingly enough, because we live in a more rural community, we used to have bus loads of people park at the end of our street, and because our street is a crescent, it was easy for the kids because they would get off the bus. I mean, 20, 30 at a time, and just do our street and then get back on the bus.
You must have had really good treats.
We had great treats, and we used to see like 200 plus kids all the time. But now that it's more built up, we have, a lot of newer homes around here, and it's not as busy.
Yeah, when my kids were smaller, we used to get a couple hundred kids too. I used to always run out of treats, and I would run to the store to get more if the store had any left, and run back, while my husband was still handing out treats. And but now you don't, well, especially with COVID, we didn't have trick-or-treaters last year. They okayed it this year, apparently, but it just doesn't seem, you don't seem to get a lot of kids like you did when my kids were smaller, even when I was young.
Right. I know, it's weird. And this year, I'm looking forward to it, because last year, nobody shelled out. It was a weird year.
Yep. I saw the house across the street have a couple of kids, but the car pulled up. Kids and a couple of grown-ups came out, so it's probably somebody that they knew. So they're probably just going to houses of the people that they knew, but they didn't come to our house, and we had all this candy, and I'm like, oh my, what are we going to do with this now? And of course, my family was giddy, like, look at all the candy we have.
Yep, same here.
Yeah. You have to kind of hide it away so nobody eats it all in like a week.
Yeah, but I like candy though, Kat,
Yeah, me too. A little too much.
Yeah, me too.
We have this place in town called Cash and Carry. We call it our local Costco, but it's not. It's just where local corner stores and stuff like that get their supplies, so you can buy great big jugs of mayonnaise and just large amounts of whatever stores would need, and restaurants. And they usually carry these boxes of chips. Well, they're not the little Halloween 3 chips in a bag type chips. They're like a nice size, like what you would buy at a checkout at like at Walmart or whatever, a bigger bag. So that's where we go to buy our chips instead of getting the smaller ones. And usually the kids are like, whoa, we've got look at the size of this chip bag.
I like it. I'm coming to your house.
Come on down. Any special traditions you follow this time of year?
Well, I actually have a couple of friends who are practicing witches, which is an interesting thing. So normally I will pop into their house after all the trick-or-treaters are gone, and they do a great little ritual, because to witches, of course, Halloween is New Year's Eve. So with them, they burn all of their intentions and stuff like that. So they send all of those intentions up into the universe, and it's a really neat thing. So we write down all of the intentions that we have for the new year, anything that we want to let go of, anything that we want to bring in, and then they burn them in the cauldron. And after that, we all have tea or whatever libations that they've provided, along with some soul cakes, which is fun. So that's pretty much what I love about Halloween night. So I get to celebrate it with the witches.
Nice. Yeah. Good old Samhain, if I'm pronouncing it properly. I never know how to pronounce it. I know everyone, it looks like it's pronounced Samhain, but it's not. It's Gaelic.
Right.
Yeah. I used to make this Samhain cake when I was younger, and it was just a berry bread. It was a heavy berry bread, and it was so delicious. It had blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries, and some other things in it. It was so good. I'll have to find my recipe. See, I should start making that again.
Well, that's it. You got to send the recipe to me too. But honestly, Halloween is great. But I have to say, people like us, I'm sure, it's Halloween all day, every day, 365, 24/7.
Yep. I had posted on various social media October 1st, there's a picture of a person wearing they have a pumpkin head, and they've got their arms outstretched, towards the sky, and, it's like, it's Halloween season, Halloween month or whatever it was. And somebody said they've been waiting for Halloween since last Halloween. And I thought, you're my people.
It's true.
What do you think it is about Halloween that everyone, well, not everyone, but people like us really like this time of year? Is it the changes of the season, or, I don't know, the harvest?
I think it's the feeling in the air because, it is true. There's a big grain of truth to the fact that the veil is lifting. I mean, you can feel it. If you know sensitive people or you're sensitive yourself, you know that with the sort of I guess it's called the fall equinox, that sort of ushers in a different feeling in the air. And there's this mysteriousness to this time of the year that I think people are drawn to. I mean, think about it. How many people do you know when you tell them I'm a paranormal investigator, even if you're at a beach bonfire party at some point in, July, you say, oh yeah, I'm a paranormal investigator. Immediately they say, oh man, I love Halloween. Halloween is great.
True. They seem to associate that with us, which it kind of is our time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you have to admit, Kat, you probably go to all of those Halloween stores and stuff like that at this time of the year just to buy all of your decor that you leave up like all year anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. This time of year I absolutely love in the evenings, because it gets dark a lot sooner, but I love the sound when it's dark. You have all those dried leaves on the ground, and it's a little windy, and you can hear the leaves rustling outside. I love that sound so much.
Oh, yeah, me too. Me too. The only sound that I don't like about this time of the year is that up here where I live, it's now like duck hunting season or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, oh my God, all I can hear are the guns
the gunshot.
going on the, it's horrible.
Oh, gee. Wow.
Well, being vegan, that really matters to me.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know you were vegan. Oh, I love my meat. I'm sorry.
You know what? I'm the only vegan in my family, so I totally understand. And I don't, push any of this on them. I figure if they want to have a good barbecue steak, go ahead. But
yeah. Yeah. I went to a barbecue once many years ago, and a friend of mine, she was vegan, and she had this Tofu Burgers. This is like back in the early 2000s. That was unheard of. She must have spent an arm and a leg on that because it's pricey now. I could just imagine what it was like back then. And I thought, oh, I'm going to try it. Nope. Oh, it was horrible. But that was how many years ago now? So I'm sure it's improved since then.
Oh, it's all improved because now you've got all of these things, that's beyond whatever it's called, beyond meat or
Beyond
whatever.
Meat, yeah.
But the best ones are the black bean burgers, and even my diehard youngest daughter Arden loves black bean burgers, and she's like a meat eater extraordinaire. So, it's really improved. It's a good thing.
I like black beans. I'll have to look into that.
So delicious.
'Cause back in the day, it just used to be tofu.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. You have to drizzle it with lots of barbecue sauce or whatever to kill the taste, but black beans, yeah, that's nice.
I know. I had a friend who used to call it tofu.
I can agree.
Right?
Did you pick up any pumpkins yet?
I have. I've got 2 pumpkins that are already on my porch, and I
Nice.
love pumpkins. And I mean, the taste of the carvable pumpkin is definitely different from the taste of a pie pumpkin. But
Yes.
when my girls were really little, right after Halloween, you know how everybody throws out their porch pumpkins?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we used to go around with our wagon, and we used to go and pick them all up out of the garbage piles, and I would take them home and I would cut them up because they're still edible. Of course they are. And I used to cut them up, and I used to steam them, and I used to put all of that in the freezer, mash them up and put them in the freezer in 1-cup increments. And then we would have pumpkin soup all year. We would have pumpkin bread all year. We would have all of that stuff. So yeah, I love pumpkins.
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
one of those, I'm one of those interesting people who doesn't like anything to go to waste, Kat.
Yeah. I noticed. My daughter's the same way.
Frugal.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. No, we have one pumpkin so far. I didn't actually go out and buy any. We put in a garden this year and tried to grow pumpkins, but the pumpkins didn't get very big. They're just small ones, but we have a couple out already, but they're cute. But I plan on buying some more. Yep.
Oh yeah, now they're nice and cheap. I've noticed that. So keep your eyes peeled because they're really nice and cheap now.
Yep. And my daughter loves to make pumpkin pie from scratch, which we don't mind at all, and pumpkin cookies and bread. Oh, good grief.
Yum.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm coming to your house.
Anytime.
Perfect.
So we were talking about what topic that you would like to talk about other than Halloween, and you said one of your favorite topics was attachments. And I don't think I've really spoken much about that, maybe in passing on any other episode. So this intrigued me, and I really liked the idea of talking about that.
Yeah, I really like the topic of attachments. And one of the reasons why I like it is because so many people bring it up all the time. We have public meetings. Now, because of, the big C word and all of that stuff that's happening in the world right now, we had to suspend our public meetings, but we would have them bi-monthly and they were free. We held them at a local funeral parlor, believe it or not.
Oh,
Funeral
wow.
home gave us their, yeah, I know, it's funny, right? People
That's
always
cool.
go, no way.
Wow, I like that. That's neat.
I used to be a church secretary in my previous life, and I got to know a lot of the funeral directors in the area. And this particular couple that owns this particular funeral home, I mean, they're amazing. And he was so gracious when I mentioned that I wanted to have meetings, but, we don't charge for what we do as normal paranormal investigators don't. And we don't have a lot of money to dispense for things like rental fees, but I really wanted to have a location to hold public meetings for free so that people had a safe space to kind of share all of their information that they might have about all of this, their experiences, anything, bring questions, let's talk about this as a collective. And he was great. He said, you know what, you guys do really important work, and I would love to have you use our space, because really the only time that space is used, it's a reception room and it's quite large, is for funerals. And often people don't have the receptions there. They might have them back at their own home, or they might have them back in the church hall if they're church going people. But he said it sat there and unused for so often that this would be a perfect opportunity to have that space used for a good thing, a really good purpose. So how nice is that?
That's really nice. Kudos to the funeral director. Nice.
No kidding. He's amazing. But we would have these great meetings, and hopefully we'll get to have them soon once restrictions are eased a little bit and we can have them indoors safely. But people used to talk about attachments a lot, and they would say things like, well, after I brought something home, an antique store or yard sale, or even just buying something new, they said, I would have this weird activity in my home. And how come that is? I mean, how can something come in when you bring something home? So attachments are really important. And yourself, I'm sure a lot of people talk to you about attachments, right?
Yep. Yes, they certainly do. That's I lost you there for a
second. And I think people don't understand. Still
there? Oh, okay. No, we're good.
Am I back? I hope I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
Oh, thank goodness, because it's unreliable. We're having weird weather here. It's rainy and it's really kind of dull and awful out there. And I know we've had some internet issues in the neighborhood, so keep your fingers crossed.
Okay. Fingers crossed. And toes.
Okay. But not your eyes, because it's really hard to drive that way. Just saying. People talk about attachments, and they don't understand that, you can bring something home. If you go to, let's say, a yard sale, and you love something that is not necessarily old, but has been pre-loved. Maybe there's an attachment. Maybe somebody who passed on is staying because they're worried about where this particular piece of furniture is going to end up, and they're attached to it. They don't want to let it go. And then you buy it and you bring it home into your house and you're using it. They just might be attached to that, and they might not be happy that, you know, it is in your house and that you are using this piece of furniture. Or they might just be curious about you, and they might start telling you that they're there in no uncertain terms. So people don't really understand the concept.
It could be something as simple as someone who has negative energy just happened to pick something up to look at it and put it down, and now that item has that negative energy attached to it.
Exactly. Bingo. Perfect. Perfect example. And you could be just walking around the mall, and if your energy is attractive to something out there, and you know yourself, we're surrounded by energy and entities, you know, 24 hours a day. If one of them is particularly attracted to you and your energy, you could be bringing that attachment home with you.
Yep, you have a new friend and you don't even know it, and you don't want them.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's like that Klingon, you know, from high school that you really never liked, but came to all the parties.
I always use the example of, and I've said this countless times on the show, that, you know, I could go out walking in the woods and I'm going to see all kinds of deer and other wildlife, and somebody else could go out and not see anything, but you know they're there. And, you know, some people, wild animals like deer and chipmunks and stuff, just are attracted to and they go up to. So I kind of use that analogy with how spirits are with people as well.
Yep, I totally agree with that. And I think attachments are something that, you know, most people don't really even think about until something happens to them, until something happens in their home. I mean, you know, at one point, one of my team members and I, we had gotten some new equipment and decided that we were going to take this equipment. And this is right when the SB7 was, the Spirit Box was really out there, and a lot of teams were buying one, and we thought, let's hop on the bandwagon and see how this thing works. So we wanted to test it out, and we went to a local graveyard because we figured, what the hell, you know, this is probably a good place to take this thing and try it out. And it's a relatively new, and it was at the time, cemetery in town, and we thought, well, you know, we've heard some stories about it. Let's see what voices we can pick up, and let's see if this thing actually works. Well, we did that, and after doing that, it was really important that before we got back in the house, because we were using what's ostensibly a divination device, really, we made sure to tell whoever was maybe potentially following us home that they were not allowed to follow us home. And we do that all of the time. But this one particular occasion, I was really, really, really busy. I had a lot of stuff on my mind, and we had gone out to do an investigation. We went to another local cemetery with a group of people. We walked around, and I was so busy. It was late. I had all kinds of crap in my car, and I had to bring it in, and I was ticked off, and we got home late. And anyway, long story short, I walked through the door. I got ready for bed. I brushed my teeth, hopped into bed, and something had followed me home. I had an attachment, and it was a very tall, horrible, dark male. I sensed that it was male, shadow figure, and it followed me home, and I had to kick it out, and it was not a good experience.
How did you get rid of it?
Well, luckily, it did leave, because I talked to it, and I said, you are not allowed to be in my home. This is my home. This is not your home. And I know that you were attached and attracted to me. No, you need to leave, and you need to leave now, or else I'm going to bring out the big guns. I have a lot of sage, and I know people. So you better leave right away.
I pretty much say those same words. A lot of sage, and I know people. Yeah,
but I was lucky because it left. But I know a lot of
very
people.
lucky.
Oh yeah, but I know a lot of people
sticky.
that aren't so lucky.
No,
right?
And I think it's your intent too. If you have any little bit of fear, your words aren't really going to hold a lot of authority to whatever you're trying to tell to leave.
Well, that's true. That's really true. That's like, saying, "Oh, go away, bad person," but not really, not really understanding what you're saying and hiding behind a desk while you say it.
Yes, exactly. I've told clients before, use your mom voice or your dad voice to, use that with authority, and that usually that works. And they that way they can understand. When you tell them with authority, they don't quite understand how to do that. But if they have kids and you say use your mom or dad voice, then it's like, oh, okay.
You know what? You're absolutely right. And it's funny because being a paranormal investigator, often when people contact us for situations in their home and things that are happening around them, and they know that they have either an attachment or they have, a visitor inside their house, they're really afraid. So they contact us because they can't find their mom voice or their dad voice.
Yeah.
But, really, it's so important that if something is happening in your environment, then really you need to take back your environment. And so many people don't understand that notion.
Exactly. I usually tell friends, especially if they're military, because a lot of the military housing, you have so many people go through those houses, so many different types of energy and emotions that go through there, that I usually tell people that as soon as you move into a new, it's called PMQs. As soon as you move in, if you want to stage later, it's fine. But as soon as you get there, just if you notice that there's a little activity, just say, "This is my house now. I live here, and you're not to be here anymore. This is now my place. It was yours now, but not anymore." And that usually works. And I had one friend that I still had to go in and stage, but for the most part, that usually works.
You're absolutely right. It's so true. And one of my old boyfriends used to be in the military, and I know all about the PMQs for sure. Went to a barbecue or two in my time in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Oh,
That's
wow.
another story. But I can remember talking to someone who actually did live in a PMQ a long time ago, and she was, now I think she was Ukrainian or Hungarian, and she said that she really believed in doing what you just said, but because her grandmother, whenever they moved into a new apartment, the grandmother lived with them her whole life, would go into this apartment, open up all the windows, even if it was in the winter. And this grandmother would open up all the windows and in a very pronounced like Hungarian or Ukrainian accent would say, "You need to leave right away because this is my house," right?
I love that. To me, with that accent, has even more intent. Like, I don't want to mess with you.
You better believe it. And I mean, I can just imagine that because I'm Slovak, right? That's my heritage. And I can imagine like my grandmother with the big babushka on her head going around saying, "Get out of my house, you crazy people,"
That's awesome. So how does a person know that they have an attachment if they've never had anything to do with the paranormal community?
Well, it's funny you ask that because we get a lot of people that contact us who do have attachments, who say things like, "Okay, you're going to think I'm crazy, but," right? ...
Sorry, I just knocked something over.
That's okay. No worries. But no, it's true. I mean, people contact us and they say, "Yeah, this is a crazy thing and I don't know why I'm contacting you, but I feel really different in my house." And I think that's like the key. That's the number one element that people will say. "I feel really weird in my house and I didn't know where else to go. And I thought maybe it might have something to do with, the unexplained because I never felt like this before. And I feel really weird contacting you because I wasn't even sure if I believed in you guys."
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's the number one thing, is that people feel either compromised or unsafe, or they just feel awkward in an environment that they never felt that way before in, or that's the number one. And the number two is things start occurring that they can't readily explain. And even the most logical person can't explain it. The logic doesn't make sense. Like 2 + 2 does not equal 4. It's kind of like 2 + 2 = 1.5, and that's not right.
Yeah. Are there any particular... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I really think that that's the key, is that, you know, it's just an odd environment. So, and these people feel awkward contacting people like us because necessarily, I mean, they've never even really thought about it before.
Yeah. It's starting to be a little bit more normal to talk about paranormal, but there still is a little bit of a stigma. People still are leery to talk to us.
Yes.
Are there any particular signs that people should be looking out for?
I think that in terms of signs, I think that people need to be looking out for their instincts. I mean, I know that sounds really weird, possibly a little too simplistic perhaps, but you know, trust your instincts. If something isn't right, if you feel compromised in your environment, then that could be a really good sign. Also, things that are tending to perhaps go bad for you. So all of a sudden, you know, your life is going really, really well, everything's falling into place, and then suddenly everything's happening to you. You know, you're doing things that are strange, or you know, your smoke alarms are, you just replace the batteries and your smoke alarms are acting weird and they're going off, or you know, you have electrical problems in your house. Your job has been going really great, and then all of a sudden things at work are starting to go badly. You're starting to feel maybe a bit depressed. You know, your relationship has been really great, and then all of a sudden you're getting feelings that, you know, maybe things aren't so right, or, you know, things are kind of breaking down in your environment. Your pets might be ill, or looking at the walls strangely, or things like that. I mean, I think you need to just pay attention to your environment. If things are changing in ways that you can't explain, you need to look beyond maybe what you would interpret as normal logic. I think you need to look beyond that. So really pay attention to your environment. I think it's as simple as that.
I agree. If you're familiar with your surroundings and you're switched on, and like you said, anything that just feels off in your own home, you're going to know it.
Oh, 100%. And so many people do things. I mean, everybody's multitasking, right? And everybody had been multitasking. And then all of a sudden, when the world stopped, you know, because you said a mouthful before, like everybody is now talking about maybe the paranormal a little bit more. But remember, the world stopped and the multitasking slowed down, and in some cases completely stopped dead. And so people didn't really have much of a choice than to pay attention to their environment, because everything slowed down to a snail's pace and everything changed so dramatically and so drastically that all of a sudden it was like quiet. The roads were quiet, your house was quiet, and your environment changed drastically. So you might have noticed things that your multitasking self didn't notice before, and that's probably one of the reasons why I think, you know, interest in what we do, and you know, people are paying attention to what we do a lot more these days.
Yeah, and people are home a lot more too because of COVID, with everything shut down. I know in my area things are, I wouldn't say back to normal, but you know, you don't have to be in your house as much as you did in the beginning. So I think people noticed things a lot more. Even just their flowers. People were noticing flowers, just simple little things. It was nice to see people out for walks, spending family time, and it's like the whole world just changed, just almost a snap of a finger, it seemed.
You know what? You're absolutely right. And at the beginning of all of this, when things actually stopped and people were kind of in shock, we got a real uptick in hits on the website and messaging through Facebook. People were paying attention to their environment and saying, you know, I never really noticed this before, but because I wasn't home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but for some strange reason at 3:15 or 3:20 or 3:30 in the afternoon, you know, something weird happens at my house. You know, my TV goes on and then off. And it was an interesting thing because what it made people realize was that they live in an environment that if you don't pay attention to that environment, you miss subtleties within that environment that are actually really important subtleties. Like, for example, we had somebody contact us that actually said exactly what I just said, that, I'm never home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And every day, like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's really strange. My TV just clicks on and then clicks off. So, of course, we said, listen, logical explanations are a good thing. Let's start with logic, because that's what we do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you always try and figure out logically what's going on. Is it a wire issue or, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And it wasn't a wire issue at all.
Yeah.
So they had an electrician come. Their brother-in-law was an electrician, so they didn't have to pay a cent for it, thankfully.
Nice. Yeah.
Very nice. So that he came and he checked everything out and everything was fine. Decided, okay, maybe it's the TV. So they moved the television to another location. They left it unplugged. They actually moved another TV to that particular plug, plugged it in. Same issue was happening. So what we try to do is to have them focus their attention on why it might be happening. So we always say to people, keep some sort of a log, right? Keep a diary, keep a record of when these things happen, how you're feeling when they happen. Look back in your memory, what happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in your life to maybe trigger this kind of activity. Was there a traumatic experience that you experienced? Did you lose someone? Did somebody die? Did you lose a pet? Did something happen at 3 o'clock? Well, it's very interesting when you tell people to pay attention to their environment and to really examine their feelings in their environment, and they do it. A strange thing happens. They really connect with their environment and they connect with things that they might have otherwise forgotten. And in this particular case, this man said, it's interesting you said that, because at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I remember this, I lost my girlfriend in a car accident when I was 19 years old, and it happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was devastated for like 6 months. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep. She was, my high school sweetheart, and I was, devastated by this. I went for counseling, but it was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when she died, and that was her time of death. And he said, I am, 47 years old. I don't understand why, after all of these years, this would still have significance for me. I have to think about this because, is she sending me a signal or a sign? Perhaps. But I said to him, you know what? It could very well be, just because it's a very traumatic memory for you. I mean, maybe your environment is picking up on that. And let's face it, there are so many things in this world we don't understand. And that's one of the reasons why paranormal investigators exist, is to point things out to people and say, we don't know. We have no idea. But obviously 3 o'clock in the afternoon is a significant time of day for you. And that memory that clicked in at that point was pretty traumatic. And he since has thanked us for that. And believe it or not, it has stopped.
Oh, wow.
I know, crazy, right?
That makes me wonder, though, wherever he was before COVID, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, did weird things happen? Like if he was at work, did computers malfunction or clocks? It just makes me wonder if anything significant happened at 3 o'clock that wasn't at home, like wherever he was.
Exactly. And it's funny you say that, because he even mentioned this too. He said, maybe it happened when I wasn't home, but I don't think so. And now I have to look back in my memory and try and figure out, if at work something happened, maybe on the road something happened, maybe in my car something happened at 3 o'clock. But obviously, he said, something in my subconscious was making itself known outside of myself, to make me maybe revisit and deal with some of the hurt and some of those issues that maybe I haven't dealt with, because he said, he's had some problems with a lot of his relationships. He's always his whole life compared whoever he was with to the first love of his life that he lost. And it's interesting because we often keep in touch with people that that we deal with, and he has since contacted us and said, since all of this, I've really felt much happier and much more able to conquer things in my life that I never thought I could. And I know that I had some PTSD issues because of all the trauma that I endured at that young age. So it's like, things happen in your environment that aren't necessarily ghost related or cryptic related or UFO related or any of that, but they're still paranormal.
Yes.
They are out of the realm of human consciousness.
This gentleman, it sure is. This gentleman, I wonder if his girlfriend knew that throughout his life he's had a difficult time, and she was just trying to tell him that he needed to deal with it and move on so he can be happier and have better relationships with friends and significant others and all that. So maybe that's why, if this was her trying to communicate with him, 3 o'clock was something significant, like you said. So maybe that was just her way of saying, hey, you need to wake up and deal with things.
I totally agree. And I think that's so relevant. I mean, talk about an incredible, aha moment, right?
Yeah. And it makes you wonder how often that really happens and we just miss it.
Exactly. And I think with COVID and with the world shutting down, so many people had those kinds of experiences. I mean, not exactly like that, but certainly as maybe, huge. I mean, a great, incredible moment of aha. It's the most incredible thing when you think about slowing down and how much more aware you are of your environment and your issues and all of the things that you really haven't paid attention to before.
I know there've been a lot more of UFO sightings in Canada and probably in the US and globally, I'm assuming, I don't know, during COVID. And I keep telling people, well, maybe because some people think, oh, there's a correlation between COVID and the UFOs. And I would say, not necessarily. COVID made us slow down, and we're actually looking at our surroundings, and we're looking at the skies a lot more often now. And maybe we're just starting to notice them more now. And they're not any more frequent than they were before. It's just, we're looking around more. We're taking time to smell the roses now.
We are. And I totally agree. 100%.
I would like to know if there are more sightings than before, or if it's just we happen to be noticing them. I don't think there's any way to find out, but it's interesting to know that people are taking more notice of these strange happenings now, and people are starting to talk about it. And because we both know whenever someone is having paranormal experience, or if they're seeing a cryptid or whatever, it can be really traumatizing on that individual and their families as well. So if people are talking about it more often, it's going to be not as detrimental to the family. Yeah,
and I think people do need to talk about these things more often. I think that that's one of the things that we just do, is talk about things. I mean, we're always glued to Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. I mean, how many times do people tell you, we don't sit at the table and talk anymore?
Yeah, everyone's on their own schedule and eating in front of the television or something. But families don't talk anymore. And the Let's Talk About It, I have to say, I really like the name, because Katie and Richard have their talk show that they have on Facebook. And I absolutely love the title, Let's Talk About It, because they do talk about anything paranormal. How to use crystals, how to deal with if you're having paranormal experiences and things like that. So Let's Talk About It talking is so important.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we always loved having our public meetings, because that's all we did was we talked about things, and it makes you feel so much better, and it's so inclusive. And honestly, talking is the way to deal with things. And if you can't talk, you can't deal.
Exactly. And it's nice to know that other people are having similar experiences as you, and you know that you're not crazy. There's other people experiencing the same things globally. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and I think there's so much empowerment in knowing that there's a commonality, that the common denominator of experiences really is empowering, because you realize you're not alone, and that other people out there are trying to deal with the same or similar circumstances. And, by connecting with these people, you realize, you can do it. You are empowered.
Exactly. How would somebody who has an attachment, how would they go about getting rid of it if they really didn't know about all this in the beginning?
Well, I think that most people with attachments eventually get to a point in their lives where they know that there's something wrong. Because let's face it, if you have an attachment, something is happening in your environment that you can't explain. And you're going to talk to somebody out there about it. And eventually you're going to hit upon a person who doesn't just go, yeah, well, that's really weird. Somebody else is going to say, well, maybe you need to talk, right? Somebody else might say, well, maybe you need to talk to somebody about this. And then eventually they'll reach out to somebody like us.
Yeah, I'm finding more and more people come up to me, or they'll message me and they'll say, so-and-so, I was talking to a friend about this particular instance, and they said, Kat might be able to help you. And definitely, if someone's going through something paranormal, reach out to me. And if I can't help, I know people who can. There's so many people that I'm in contact with now that there is help out there for you.
Yeah, and I think that's really important too. I think if you're in the paranormal field, it's so crucial that if you can't help, that you reach out to someone else who can. And I think, they always talk about like priests and people like that have a calling, right? We have a calling. I mean, I know so many people who, yes, are not doing this for the right reasons. Absolutely. There's always going to be people out there that are not doing this for the right reasons. But there are also going to be people like us that are. And I think if you're doing this kind of work, that it really truly is a passion and it is a calling. And because it is, you are going to be led to the right people, and to the people that also are doing this for the right reasons, so that you can connect and make sure that you provide help for people. Because really that's what it's all about. We're in it for help, and we're in it for love. We're in it for all of the right reasons.
Exactly. I never thought of it being a calling. I definitely agree that it's a passion, but I never thought of it as being sorry, getting tongue-tied here. Never thought of it as a calling before. But yeah, you are right.
Yeah, I really think it is. I think that, especially because I worked, I think, in the church, and I would listen to all of these meetings that the groups in the church were having, and they would be talking about, this is a calling. I mean, being a priest is a calling, and being a deacon is a calling, and you just know inside of you, right, that this is a calling, that this is what you should be doing. I really paid attention, and I thought, well, heck fire, that's probably why I'm doing this. And by the way, when I worked in the church, I was told, do not tell anybody that this is what you do.
Really? They didn't want that stigma attached to the church?
I think that was exactly it, because I worked in the Roman Catholic Church, and I was brought up Roman Catholic, and I do remember even as a child, I do remember people saying, you do not do anything that has anything to do with the supernatural or the paranormal. It's just a sin and it's bad. And it's really funny because when I got the job at the church, I was basically told, you know what, I mean, I think it's fascinating and all of that, but, you know, don't make it known out there that this is what you do. And I was fine with that because I understood. Growing up in that community, I totally understood, but it didn't mean that I was going to stop doing it. It didn't mean that I was going to give everything up and you know, just let it go, because truly I really believed that it was a calling, that it was something that I'm meant to do, and I still believe that.
Yeah, agreed. Like I said, I didn't think of it as a calling, but you're so right. There's a reason why we've followed this path, and it is a path because I remember growing up, I've always been fascinated with the paranormal, and I only thought back years later that my first investigation was when I was a teenager. There was a local legend. I actually had 2 or 3 episodes ago called Rebecca's Grave. It's like the Buck Hill over here in the Ottawa Valley. You know, teenagers go there to try and find with spirit and all that. And I actually went to the library. I went to the site with friends, obviously, and then I went to the library to do some research. And it only dawned on me later, hey, that was pretty much the first time I did an investigation because I did research on it as well. So that was happened very young.
Yeah, and I truly believe that if it's something that you're called to do, then it becomes, you know, a turning point in your life.
Yeah. And then I met Katie Turner, and all hell broke loose.
The rest is history.
Yes. So any place in particular that you would suggest for people to reach out if they have concerns or fears, or that they or a loved one has an attachment?
You mean any place in particular, like my paranormal group?
Yes, that's a given. Would they go to, I guess it would depend on what their faith is as well, if they would go to a particular clergy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we always tell people too. I mean, they can reach out to a paranormal group, you know, a local paranormal group that really, you know, is well respected. Do your research, you know, go online, find 1 or 2 of them, and then just maybe read if they have anyone who's reviewed them, or they know of anybody who's used them. That would be a good thing. But if they're having issues and they're of a particular religious persuasion, sometimes they feel more comfortable reaching out to, let's say, you know, a reverend or a minister or a priest or even a shaman.
Definitely.
And it's important because you got to feel comfortable, right, Kat?
Oh, exactly. If you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to get the help.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think paranormal investigators out there as well have to really pay attention to the environment that they find themselves in when they go and interview somebody who's having paranormal issues. Because, you know, let's face it, we're kind of like CSI Paranormal, right?
Yes, we are.
I mean, if you're going into a location and you realize that they've got a lot of crosses, you know, a lot of crucifixes in the area, you know, they've got, let's say, a little shrine to the Virgin Mary on their nightstand, you know, they have maybe a little holy water font beside the front door. They may be Catholic, you know, they may be of a particular religious persuasion, and you have to really respect that.
Yes. I've seen a woman's house before where she had bottles and bottles throughout her house with holy water
Wow.
because she was afraid of what was going on in her house. But we dealt with that, and it wasn't what she thought, thankfully. A lot of times I find it's not as bad as what you think. Let's say you hear, I'm trying to figure out an example. We had this one case one time where the child was pushed over, and toys were being played with, and then we realized that it was a spirit dog I was trying to play with the child and play with the balls and things like that. So it wasn't anything demonic like they thought it was. Or people are trying to get your attention, you know. It's like, you know, say I'm a spirit and I'm in your house and you don't know I'm there and I'm trying to communicate and you're ignoring me and I'm starting to get frustrated, so I might throw a book at you or something, you know. I'm not saying that always happens, but it's not always something as bad as you think it is.
Well, that's true, because most people watch those shows, and you know, it's great TV for somebody to, you know, yell and scream and go, "Oh my God, it's a demon!"
Yeah. There was a show.
It does make TV.
It sure does. I used to watch all those shows. I have a difficult time watching them now because my daughter always tells me to leave the room because she likes watching. She knows it's not 100% like the TV shows, but I'd be like, "It's not like that." Or they'll say, "Did you see that move?" Like, "No, because the camera was on your face. I saw nothing." So she's like, "Mother, you're ruining my show. Leave." I'm like, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." But they are entertaining. I actually listened to a podcast many years ago. I can't remember what the show was or who the guest was. The only thing that stuck out was this gentleman told this call-in that their toilet was the portal to hell. And I thought, that's it, I've had enough. I couldn't listen any further. That's the only thing.
You know what, Kat, if you've been in the bathroom after my husband's been in the bathroom, you would know that the toilet was the portal to hell.
That's so funny. But no, it irritates me when everyone sees the, you know, the D word and they drop the D word all the time. You know, it's not always that, but I don't know.
No, it's
no.
Well, and you know full well too, and I tell this to everyone before we do events, because right now we're actually doing some events in a neighboring town, and part of the event involves a live investigative experience, which is really great because so many people, they see them on TV, but they don't realize that, yeah, you know, this actually does happen, that people do sometimes walk around with instruments, and people do sometimes use, you know, teddy bears that if they're touched, they might say, "Oh, that tickles." I mean, it does happen. So it's a really neat experience for them. But I always tell them the same thing. You know, if you watch any of those shows, you are watching the creme de la creme of those particular experiences. So that particular show is a condensation of, let's say, you know, 3 nights or 6 days or a week or whatever in a location. You're watching the creme de la creme because people like us sit around and nothing much happens. Maybe something doesn't happen at all for 2-3 nights, and then boom, something big happens, and then you sit around for another day or two and nothing happens, and then boom, something else happens. So you cannot guarantee a paranormal experience for people. So, you know, all of these paranormal groups and events and stuff that say, "We guarantee that you'll be terrified." Well, you can't guarantee anything because a ghost or spirit does not, you know, does not perform on command.
No, I was thinking those exact words. You read my mind. I mean, those shows, like you said, they might be there.
It's kind of like putting. It's kind of like.
Say again?
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like putting your 2-year-old on the potty and saying, "Okay, now
go."
Boom, boom. You know, it's not a guarantee that it's going to happen.
Yeah, they're just sitting there looking at you.
That's right.
Yeah, when you explain to people that when they watch shows like that, they could be there for like 3 days or whatever, and for hours and hours, you know, it could be 12 hours, 20 hours, whatever, nothing absolutely happened. Those few instances that something did happen, that's what they're actually showing on TV, because nobody wants to see you sitting in a dark room waiting for something to happen. And that happens so often. You know, you're sitting in, you know, the investigators are sitting in a dark room, they ask a question and they wait to hear if there's going to be a response, either on recording or what, you know, but you're just sitting in a dark room waiting for something to happen pretty much.
Yeah, and sometimes absolutely nothing happens. You know, you'll be talking to a client, you go and you do a preliminary walkthrough, and you know, you sort of ascertain that, okay, maybe this person needs some help.
Yeah.
Things aren't happening now, but perhaps they will, and they want some evidence, and then you do an investigation and you get absolutely zero. So you know, you're not guaranteed that anything is going to happen, and that's something that people don't understand.
Yeah, we tell clients too that just because not as much activity happened while we're here compared to what you're telling us doesn't mean that it's not happening, and it doesn't mean that we don't believe you. It just so happens that nothing happened tonight while we're here.
Exactly. And you know yourself too that sometimes spirit intervention only happens when particular people are there. So if you're doing an investigation and that, you know, that client is not there at the time, you know, nothing's going to happen.
Yep. The person who, I don't want to say the trigger, but it's pretty much whoever the individual is the trigger, they should probably be there when you do the investigation. Just it helps us out as well, so we can know exactly, so we can actually document what's happening, and then we can figure out how to help you afterward. Okay, sorry about that, listeners. We had some technical issues, like usual with me. I talk with my hands, like I told Lynda, it's the French in me, and I hit something and everything went wonky. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of editing, but we did left, cheapers, I can't even get my mouth to work now. We did leave off talking about trigger people. So if you just wanted to pick up from there, Lynda, and then, yeah, and just see where it goes, and let's hope that this works.
Yeah, I know technology is my friend. Believe me, it's not my friend.
Yeah. So yeah, trigger people that should be there during investigations. I think that's what you had mentioned.
Yep, and I think that you know, sometimes paranormal investigators forget that issues happen because entities are attracted to specific energies, and that could mean maybe one of the people that lives there. So they got to keep an open mind.
Definitely, yeah. I find that even with investigators on our team, with pieces of equipment, I could use the spirit box and not get a hit. April could hold it and get lots and lots of communication from it. You know, it depends on the individual too, and what piece of equipment. I've found that during investigations as well. Do you find that as well?
Oh my gosh. It's funny you say that, because I was just telling my assistant director, Sherry, that, yeah, I can do a spirit box session and get maybe a couple of voices coming through, but the minute she touches it and does one, it's like magic.
Oh, wow. It amazes me every time too. And sometimes it doesn't have to be the same person with that same piece of equipment. It could be somebody else with that piece of equipment. Sometimes it varies from investigation to investigation.
Yeah, it's true. I think it depends on the environment that you're in, and, you know, whether or not your energy is speaking to whatever, you know, energies are in that environment, and how they want to talk to you through which piece of equipment, if any piece of equipment at all, because sometimes we are our own best equipment.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, but we try and use equipment because we're trying to log whatever's happening. Just us sensing things or things happening to us is not enough for us to be able to log the activity that's going on. So that's why we use the equipment as well.
Yeah, we tend to use equipment for that reason as well. But when we do an investigation, we usually do, and I'm going to say 90% of the time, because the people really appreciate it, we do an investigative report. So if somebody, let's say, is picking up some kind of sadness, or if they're feeling ill, or if they sense that something is happening, we'll record that down too, as well as the equipment issues.
Good idea. I know some teams also log what the weather is like right down to the wind speed and barometric pressure and everything like that. Do you look at that as well when you investigate?
Often we'll make a note of the temperature outside. We'll make a note of the weather conditions, because if we're, let's say, in Picton and it's particularly cold, our instrumentation might not work, not due to spirit issues, but because it's so darn cold that the equipment doesn't want to work.
Yeah, we don't want to work in extreme cold, so why does the equipment?
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, we just hope that there's a Tim's or a Starbucks nearby.
Right? So true. Well, Lynda, it was amazing having you on. Before we head off, would you like to tell people where they can find you?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on. It was fantastic. I loved talking to you. It's like talking to my best friend sitting on my porch with my cat on my lap.
Yeah, we both had our cats with us. I enjoyed this as well.
Yes, thank you. Well, and you know, people can always find us on Facebook, Georgina Paranormal Society. They can find us on our website, georginaparanormal.com, on Twitter as well, and our handle is at Georgina Ghosts.
At Georgina Ghosts?
You got it.
Okay. I thought you cut off there for a second, but I wasn't sure. And as usual,
well,
everyone, the way it's been going, yeah.
This is what it is.
We're going to be adding the links to the show notes, so it's easier for you to just click and boom, you can find Lynda. So happy Samhain to the wonderful ladies at Brimstone and Belladonna here in Pembroke. You guys have to check out that place. They have all kinds of great books, crystals, and very, very knowledgeable ladies as well. So happy Samhain to you, Lynda, and anybody who celebrates this. Thank you so much for being on. I really, really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Kat. It was phenomenal. Thank you, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. I love it. Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And if you'd like to be on the show or have questions and comments, just drop me an email, paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Paranormal Heart would like to extend a special thank you to PurplePlanet.com for supplying the music for the show. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart are those of the host and participants.